Knew something was wrong the moment the minivan door slid open. Not a buddy's car, not a rideshare, not someone lost. A minivan. And then he stepped out. 58 years old. Calm. Focused. Wearing full tactical paintball gear, custom marker, reinforced vest, gloves that looked like they'd seen real combat. And in one hand, a cooler. Not beer, not ice, steaks. That's when I realized I had accidentally invited the wrong man to my bachelor party. And somehow, it was about to become the best decision of my life. Before we get into the story, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible? Like you were overlooked, underestimated, quietly written off? Because today's story isn't just about a bachelor party gone wrong. It's about what happens when someone society forgot about finally gets invited to the table and absolutely owns the room. If you love stories where fate delivers the kind of justice nobody saw coming, hit that like button, subscribe to Taking Revenge Hour, and settle in. Because this one sneaks up on you and hits hard. Bachelor parties are weirdly symbolic. They're supposed to represent freedom, friendship, the last breath before responsibility. But when you're the one planning it, it mostly feels like logistics, spreadsheets, and quiet panic that no one's actually going to show up. I remember sitting at my desk at work, pretending to listen during a midweek meeting that could have been an email. My laptop was open, but my phone was in my hand under the table. I was scrolling contacts, thumb moving automatically, brain half elsewhere. I'd been stressed for weeks. Wedding costs, guest lists, family expectations, trying to keep everyone happy without losing myself in the process. The bachelor party was supposed to be the easy part. Paintball felt safe, neutral, no drama, no regrets. I created the group text, quickly. No clever message, no build-up. Just paintball, this Saturday, bachelor party, be there. Then I started adding names. Mike, best man, Jason, childhood friend, Rob, coworker turned drinking buddy, Chris, college teammate, and David. I didn't even hesitate, because in my head, David meant David College, the guy who once tried to light a grill with a leaf blower, the guy who trash-talked so much he got benched in intramurals, the guy who would absolutely thrive in a paintball environment. I tapped the name and moved on. Message sent. The meeting ended. Life continued. And somewhere between emails and errands and wedding stress, I completely forgot about it. What I didn't realize was that my phone didn't say David College. It said David from accounting. David from accounting wasn't part of my social world. He was the kind of coworker you nodded to in the hallway, the kind who brought his lunch in a small cooler instead of ordering out, the kind who never interrupted meetings. 58 years old. Quiet. Polite. The kind of man people described as nice, which usually means invisible. I'd spoken to him twice. Once when the printer jammed, once when he held the door. That was it. He never replied to the text. And honestly, that didn't even register. Guys sometimes don't respond. Group chats are chaos. Saturday rolled around fast. The air was crisp when we pulled into the paintball lot. Gravel crunched under tires. You could hear compressed air firing in the distance. Sharp pops echoing through the trees. The guys were buzzing. Trash talk started immediately. You're going down. Last time you cried. Don't forget your inhaler, man. I was laughing, relaxed for the first time in weeks. And then the minivan pulled up. Part 2. David from accounting. Expanded, plus 600 to 700 words. The minivan didn't belong. It wasn't aggressive enough, too clean, too responsible. It rolled to a stop near the edge of the lot, engine humming softly like it was unsure it was welcome. The side door slid open, and that's when I saw him. David. David from accounting. At first, my brain rejected it. No way. That can't be right. Then he stepped fully into view. He wasn't wearing jeans and a confused expression like I'd expected. He was wearing gear. Not rental gear, not borrowed gear. Professional-looking tactical paintball equipment. Padded vest, gloves molded to his hands, knee guards scuffed with use. His marker wasn't plastic and scratched like the rentals either. It was metal, sleek, maintained. This man had experience. Then I noticed the cooler. Heavy. Carried with confidence. That's when my chest tightened. "Oh no," I whispered. I jogged toward him, panic building with every step. "David, hey, this is awkward. I'm really sorry. I meant to—" He raised a hand gently, not to stop me. Not annoyed, just calm. "I know," he said. 2 words. No accusation, no embarrassment, just understanding. I stared at him. You do?" He nodded, smiling faintly. "You don't strike me as someone who'd suddenly remember me on a Saturday." That stung more than anger would have. "I should have told you," I said quickly. "This was my fault. I didn't even realize until right now. You don't have to—" He looked past me, toward the field, toward the guys laughing and gearing up. "I haven't been invited to something like this in a long time," he said. "How long?" I asked. He paused. 20 years. The number landed hard. "I figured," he continued, "worst case, I play a round or 2 and leave. Best case, I get to feel like one of the guys again." Then he smiled. A real smile. "So let's do this." I expected awkwardness. I expected him to get eliminated immediately. I expected polite tolerance from the guys. What happened instead was a slow, shocking takeover. On the field, David didn't rush. He didn't spray. He waited. While the rest of us yelled and charged forward, he moved with intention. He crouched, he listened, he watched. And then, pop, pop. Guys dropped. Mike got hit first, then Jason, then Rob. Within minutes, people started asking, "Who the hell is this guy?" Between matches, David opened the cooler. Inside, marinated steaks. Thick, perfectly prepared. "I didn't know what the food situation was," he said, like it was nothing. The grill hissed. The smell alone silenced everyone. Someone handed him a beer. He declined. After. And while we ate, he talked. About the 80s. About road trips with friends who drifted away. About paintball leagues before it was mainstream. The guys leaned in. They laughed. They listened. David wasn't a mistake anymore. He was the anchor. The thing people don't tell you about moments like that bachelor party is this. They don't end when everyone goes home. They linger. They echo. They change the way rooms feel afterward. Monday morning hit like every other Monday. Gray light through the office windows, stale coffee, keyboards clicking in uneven rhythms. On the surface, nothing had changed. But underneath, everything had. I noticed it first in the smallest ways. David didn't walk with his eyes down anymore. Not dramatically, not confidently, just neutrally, like someone who no longer expected to disappear if they didn't shrink themselves. When he passed by desks, people actually looked up. Mike stopped by accounting mid-morning, leaning casually against the counter like he had a reason to be there. "Hey, David, quick question about, expense codes." David smiled. "Sure." They talked for a few minutes. Too long for small talk, too easy for it to be forced. When Mike left, he clapped David on the shoulder. A friendly gesture. A simple thing. But David stood there for a second afterward, like his body was recalibrating to the idea that someone had touched him without obligation. I caught that moment, and it sat heavy in my chest, because I realized something uncomfortable. David hadn't changed. We had. I started noticing the patterns I'd never seen before. How David always arrived early and left late, not because he was slow, but because no one ever asked him to leave with them. How he listened more than he spoke, because every time he had spoken in the past, the room hadn't paused long enough to hear him. How he dressed neatly, consistently, like someone who believed presentation was the last thing he could control, and how easily we'd all accepted that as background noise. There was no villain here, no outright cruelty, just neglect. And neglect, I was learning, can be just as sharp. One afternoon, I overheard two coworkers talking near the break room. "Wasn't David at your bachelor party?" one asked. "Yeah," the other laughed. "Dude's a menace with a paintball gun." They said it casually, like it was obvious, like David had always been a person worth talking about. I walked past without saying anything, but inside, something twisted, because I knew the truth. That if I hadn't fat-fingered a contact name, none of this would have happened. David would still be eating lunch alone, still invisible, still uninvited. That realization followed me home. It followed me into wedding planning. It followed me when I stared at the groomsmen list on my laptop late at night. Names I'd known for years. Guys who'd been there for milestones. Guys who expected the spot. And then there was David, a man who'd done nothing to earn the position by traditional standards. No shared history, no childhood memories, no inside jokes spanning decades. Just one day, one invitation, one moment of belonging. I hovered over the keyboard. Is this weird? Is this pity? Am I overcorrecting? Then I remembered his voice in the parking lot. I haven't been invited to a boys' trip in 20 years. I added his name. Asking him was harder than I expected. I found him at his desk after hours, numbers glowing softly on his screen. He looked up, surprised. "Hey," I said. "Got a minute?" He closed the file. "Of course." I sat down, suddenly aware of how formal this felt. "I wanted to ask you something," I began, "and there's no pressure at all." He nodded slowly. "I'm finalizing my wedding party," I said, "and I'd like you to be one of my groomsmen." Silence. Not awkward silence. Processing silence. David's mouth opened, then closed. He looked down at his hands. "I think you might be asking the wrong person," he said carefully. "I'm not." Another pause. "I don't think I'm what people usually expect," he said. That hurt. "Neither am I," I replied. He laughed quietly at that. "I've never done something like that," he said. "Not even once." "Well," I said, "everyone should get one first time." His eyes were wet. He nodded. "Okay." Weddings are pressure cookers. Everyone shows up carrying expectations, judgments, assumptions, and they bring them into every room. On the morning of my wedding, the groomsmen gathered early, suits hanging, cufflinks clinking, music low. David stood near the window, adjusting his tie with methodical precision. He looked composed, not nervous, not unsure, just present. One of the guys leaned over. "Man, you clean up well." David smiled. "Thank you." No deflection, no self-deprecation. That alone felt like a victory. During the ceremony, I caught glimpses of him in my peripheral vision, standing tall, shoulders back, like he understood exactly why he was there. At the reception, when the head table filled, I noticed the looks, people scanning faces, trying to place him. A whisper here, a curious glance there. Who's that? How does he know the groom? David sat comfortably, not apologetically, not shrinking. He laughed when the guys joked. He listened when stories were told. And when people asked, someone always answered before he had to. He's one of us. Later, during the speeches, the best man mentioned the bachelor party. A few laughs. "Turns out," he said, raising his glass, "sometimes the best memories come from the wrong invitation." David laughed with everyone else, but I saw his hand tighten around the glass. After dinner, he pulled me aside. We stood near the edge of the dance floor, music pulsing softly behind us. "You didn't have to do this," he said again. "I wanted to," I replied. He nodded, then hesitated. You know, he said, after my divorce, people just stopped calling. I didn't interrupt. I wasn't angry, he continued. I just assumed that was how it worked, that certain chapters close and that's it. He looked around the room. I didn't know new ones could open. I swallowed. I'm glad you've showed up, I said. So am I, he replied. That was it. No grand speech, no tears, just truth. When the night ended and people drifted out into the dark, David hugged me tightly. Thank you, he said, for the invitation, for the seat, for the acknowledgement. As he walked away, I realized something. This wasn't revenge against a person. It was revenge against a quiet cruelty we all participate in without meaning to. And the justice? It wasn't loud. It was permanent. Later that night, David pulled me aside. You didn't have to do this, he said. I smiled. I know. But I'm glad I did. He nodded. Me too. That was the moment. Not loud, not dramatic, but deeply satisfying. Sometimes revenge isn't about humiliating someone who wronged you. Sometimes it's about lifting someone up who deserved better all along. One wrong text message, one accidental invitation, and a man who'd been invisible for decades finally got his moment. If this story hit you right in the chest, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Taking Revenge Hour, and tell me in the comments, who's someone in your life that deserves an invitation they never got? Because justice doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it comes with a seat at the table and a perfectly grilled steak.